Podcasting from the Sound of Freedom Studios, this is Local Politics. This episode is sponsored by Cartwheel Communications, web development, e-commerce, and SEO that leaves a lasting impression. This question and answer session is sponsored by the Texas Tri-County Chamber of Commerce. The TriCo vision is to build opportunities with a strong foundation and foster economic prosperity for Texas Tri-County communities. Before we get started, let's take care of some housekeeping. Early voting is April 22nd is when it starts. Early voting ends April 30th. And Election Day is May the 4th. Be with you. Easy to remember this year, especially for you Star Wars or Disney fans. I'm happy to report that we have some questions from residents and a councilwoman. So we have a question from Cheryl Maxwell and councilwoman Ashton Bowman. So thank you to both of them for submitting questions. Each candidate will be given up to 3 minutes to answer the question. So let's get started. Question 1. Please tell the voters about yourself.
Well, my name is Paul Nigerian. I've lived in Universal City since 2004. I have 2 daughters. One is in Oregon. I spaced them 20 years apart, so I have a 18-year-old and a 38-year-old. My 18-year-old was born here in Texas and raised in Universal City. I've been a part of the Citizens Police Academy since 2013, which got me involved and into the community, which I love being a part of, and led me to planning and zoning. From planning and zoning, I went on to run for city council. I've ran 3 terms, so this will be my 4th term. I believe I'm the one candidate in the race that really has the knowledge of Universal City and what we are going for in the future from everything I've been told and asked about from the citizens there. I'm very much involved in a lot of things going on. Universal City is a passion of mine, and I was not going to run again. It's going to cost me a little bit more because I threw out all my posters and everything, and but I was going to give it up, and my daughter said, why? Even though she's graduating, I'm going to be gone. My new wife, who I love very much, said, why? And a lot of people I talked to when I told them I wasn't going to run again said, why? And I have, like I said, I have the passion, and I've looked inside myself, and I am not done serving Universal City and its citizens. So that's about myself. I'm 62, but hopefully I don't look it. How's that? Perfect. Oh, one other thing. My 90-year-old mother lives there in Universal City, and I got her in the Citizens Police Academy, and she volunteers for everything and is part of the court and just loves her life there too. So Universal City is me.
Phil Vaughn, finishing my 1st term. UC born and raised, used to ride my bike to Rose Garden. Except for a few years of college, I've lived in UC my whole life. I'm a CPA, business owner, wife with 2 kids. That's me.
I'm not good about talking about myself. I'm just a regular guy. I live in Rosewood Garden. I've got a wife, 2 grown daughters. I used to consider myself middle class, but the events over the last 3 years, I now consider myself upper poor. Money's important to me. I've still maintained an excellent credit rating, but the amount going into the savings every month, well, sometimes it just doesn't. Good husband, good neighbor. I care about the city, and I want to keep the city the same charm that I fell in love with when I moved here, because it certainly wasn't for the house.
Yeah, for sure. So first, I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity that you're providing to our UC residents to get to know not only me, but all of the candidates running. I think it's so important. So I'm Nick Ferguson. I am currently serving on the Parks and Rec Board. I moved to Universal City 3 years ago with my wife, Peyton. My daughters Isadora and Eleanor, and my dad, Bob, in U.S. Navy vet. So we have a happy little family all in our little house, and we love it. So when I came to Universal City, this may sound a little cheesy, but I fell in love for the second time in my life. And without getting too personal, I didn't exactly grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I'm not a CPA, not a lawyer, I'm not a professor, but what I am is a hardworking, dedicated person, dedicated to getting to things done, not only for me and my family, but for everyone around me. So Universal City holds a special place in my heart already. I moved here and I was immediately taken away with how just the sense of community and how tight knit we are here. It's really incredible. The events that we have, our UC tree lighting, completely free. Our Snowfest, incredible. Where can you go spend a whole day at a carnival for $15? Right? You can't. It's incredible events. So I'm running because I want to share that back with as many people as I can. As many people that want to move to Universal City, I want to share that same feeling that I have, and also help keep Universal City as great of a place as it is, and then also make it even better.
My name is Lori Putt. I've had the opportunity to live in Universal City twice in my life. We moved here in 1966, and I left and married a sailor in 1971. And then we came back in 1999. My parents were still living here and had the opportunity to be here for the last years of their life. I've raised 3 children. I've been an active community volunteer and leader, I guess, in every community we've lived in. And I've actually was nominated for a South Carolina Volunteer of the Year Award, which took me to nationals, and I have a pretty letter from Nancy Reagan. But we came here to Universal City, and as my parents were aging, I had a little more time on my hands to see what I was interested in. I got involved I wanted a dog park. I'm all about my dogs. And went to a meeting and said, now I got to do this. And took over a few things, and within 2 years, we had raised $85,000. We built the dog park with no city funds. They donated the land. We got a great group of volunteers going, and from there, I took over a nonprofit called Parks Partners, and I've been working with them, and since then, we have raised a little over $350,000 that we've put back into the community through fundraisers. We work with the Parks and Rec. I work with Kim Turner. We find out what the city needs. And my golden crown is the pumpkin patch. We started the pumpkin patch 8 years ago with 100 pumpkins, and we had thousands and thousands this year. We have thousands of visitors in the month of October. And we gave out $49,000 to 18 nonprofits in Universal City. So I'm very community-minded, and I've been involved greatly with city directors, city staff, other employees through all of our volunteer efforts.
Well, my name is Bernard Rubel, 42-year resident of Universal City, retired from Brooke Army Medical Center, where I was a research physiologist in the cardiology service there. The principal function there was to allow fellows to become cardiologists through their participation in independent research, which meant a lot of statistical and data analysis for that. A longtime resident of Texas, moved here from Ohio to Baylor College of Medicine, spent 10 years in Denton, Texas, where I taught and directed the pathophysiology program for Texas Women's University, then came to Brooke Army Medical Center and spent 40 years, the rest of my career here. Retired about 2 years ago and started attending council meetings, actually a little bit before that, and basically think that we can do things a little better in council.
Question 2, why did you decide to run for council, and what are your top 2 priorities?
Again, running for city council is the vision that we as a city have for the future. I've definitely bought into that, and I would like to make sure it stays that way with the aviation district, the golf course, and a couple of passions of mine. One of them being the golf course and making sure that it is a destination spot. That is one of my big things. I want to make sure it's not just a golf course, not just a little bar and grill. I want it to be a little place for weddings. I want it to be a destination spot. I want the aviation district. And I say I want. The citizens I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of them, want that. And the aviation district. To me, the aviation district in the 20 to 40 years that it might take to get what we want accomplished down there, to me, the planning is, I always say, it's in black permanent ink. The pieces inside are dry erase. They can be moved around. Take a look at people who want to invest in the city and make sure that they know they have the full backing of the city. And once you get your investors and people giving you good planning, we can move things around, but it will be a destination spot. The other thing I'm looking at is, and I've had a lot of people asking me about this, and I've had some thoughts beforehand or in the other years, is getting a senior citizens, area there. There's a place I have in mind that used to be an old school. We used it as a library. It's real close to the new library we have now, and we need a senior citizen center. And just no two ways about it. People have said, we don't want to do this money. I don't want to hear we can't. Yes, we can. So that's going to be a passion of mine. And also, I know we're not on the VIA line. What I have in my mind is being able to have some type of local senior shuttle, be able to go from here to the VIA Center and be able to shuttle them back. I'm not sure of all the logistics on there, and there's people out there that are better suited for those type of logistics than me. But it's something that's sorely needed for our community to be able to get people back and forth. Because we do have an aging community, but at the same, this is a retirement community, a military community, and we owe that to our citizens.
Well, I ran for council because I don't think that they're taking our fiscal health seriously, and they're not listening to the people. I feel like the council should be an oversight of the city and providing checks and balances on the city, not being a yes man. That's why I originally ran. And that's why I'm continuing to run. We have some people running this time around that are really close friends with Kim Turner. And I think it's important that everybody understand that. These people have a weekly meeting at Kim Turner's house where with their spouses, where the husbands play poker and the females chat. And that's Lori Putt. That's Christina Fitzpatrick, who's already on city council, and our mayor-elect, Tom Maxwell. And then you have Paul Nigerian also running, who's a self-described yes man. Whatever the city wants, he's going to give them. So that's the one side of the argument that you can say, we want that, we want status quo, we want the city to get whatever they want, or do you want that effective oversight, a little bit of independence, and a little bit of checks and balances on what the city wants to do? That's why I want to run. But the main thing I want to do is lessen the burden on our taxpayers. We've made some poor decisions in how we've organized our finances, and that makes our property taxes high, and I would like to fix that. I'd also like to refocus the city on infrastructure, police, and fire. That's what they should be focused on, not all the extraneous stuff. So that's why I'm running.
I decided to run for council out of civic duty. I wish more people did. If enough people had run for city council, I wouldn't have to. But my top two priorities are, it's the reason that I'm running for city council, is representation and counseling. I think that a city council member should share the information that they get to the extent that the law allows. And we can get more into that later. Notify or share it with the voters, those that are inclined to be interested, and get their feedback, and then on the council board, represent the voters. I think, well, Ashton Bowman and Phil Vaughn, they do an excellent job of that. Perhaps the other four do, but I haven't witnessed it, so I can't say. But I think that what we need more of is people that are on the council for the right reason, which is to inform the public, get their feedback, and vote their will. That's what it should be all about.
I'm running for council because Universal City is such a special place for me. And my girls had this incredible feeling when we came that there's a park within walking distance, or 6 parks within walking distance of my house. And we frequently do that. We started riding bikes to the park. When we first moved here, my daughter was in a little bike trailer, and we took off to UC Park together. And I want that same experience for every young family in the area, right? And to the second part of your question, my top 2 priorities, right, are keeping it, family focused, right? So these parks are really, really incredible. The events that we have are truly amazing. And then the growth piece. I want to continue to grow Universal City and keep it this incredible community, right? The aviation district, this revitalization of this whole area. I live right by there. I'm like just on the edge of the what is considered the aviation district, and I want that to be an area that we can walk to. We can go spend time, out at to dinner, right? And then maybe go to a wine bar afterwards, right? So I want to keep Universal City moving forward, right? But doing that with all of our people around us, because it really starts with people, right? And all of our residents together. So I want to keep Universal City moving forward and doing that by bringing everybody together.
I decided to run for council because over the past few years, I've kind of felt things slow down for the progress of Universal City. Mr. Buck he was told he was going to Germany, and so that left his seat open. And I'm one of those people that is a doer. I've kind of proven it over the years. I get an idea or I see something that I want, and I'm not looking around for other people to do it. I'll take the horns, I'll get it started, and hopefully most of the time I'll see it through. And my love for Universal City, the residents and the city, I felt the time was right now. Just do it. It's time. I've got community behind me. I've got knowledge of the city behind me, and I just feel I'm a really good candidate. Everyone brings their own glory to council, and I think mine is community relations, communication with the city, and understanding the vibe of the residents. My priorities, is that the next one? Priorities is to continue moving forward. I love the idea of our aviation district, and I really want to see that come through. Everyone goes out for these long rides on weekends to these small towns that have town centers, and they come home going, oh, we don't have anything like that. Well, we can get something like that, and I want to push that. I want young families to move to Universal City and have places to go where they don't have to drive all the time. So to push that one through. The other one is, I'm not going to use the word transparency because I think it's overused. I want to open up the communication. There's so much that's going on that the citizens only hear a small portion of. And I'm on a very large community page, and we've been taking these questions from residents for years and years. And I want to say, this is why this happened. These are the laws, these are the rules, this is what the city does. And everyone kind of goes, oh, I didn't know that. So I want to be able to put that information out there in a more official manner than me just being a busybody in the neighborhood that knows things that takes up a lot of space.
Well, I decided to run for council for the same reason I decided to run for council last year, and that is to provide some process improvements in Universal City, particularly with regard to transparency, tax relief, and the reallocation of something called a venue tax.
Question 3. What is the latest with the venue sales tax?
Yeah, the venue tax, we've split it up a little bit, knowing that, the amount of money that was going in was raising, and all those funds didn't need to go to the golf course. We wanted to make sure there's some people that just wanted to get rid of it all together and take it all. But we came to the conclusion that we were able to use part of that money, about a third of it, to help with police, some fire, things that were in the library, things that were on their wish list that weren't in the budget that were top priority for them. Is if we could afford it, what could we do with this? And we were able to fund a lot of those projects, which is really nice, obviously, to keep those standards up. But as far as we still have money going to the golf course, which I support, and a lot of people support that as well. And I believe we need to continue to support that as well.
I brought this up. I wanted to convert this so we could call an election to convert the venue tax into some other sales tax, which would be a general sales tax or a street maintenance sales tax. Council blocked me. So we still have this venue tax, which can only go to the golf course. Now, the city brought the bond council and had some creative accounting to say, well, we can also spend it on some parks. So temporarily it's in a holding account, and we're going to decide annually how much is going to go to the golf course and how much is going to go to parks. But really, we should call an election and let the people tell us. Do they want this sales tax going to the golf course, or do they want it going to a primary function like streets or general fund for property tax relief or lighting a fire on our streets? We don't have a very good plan for streets right now. We have a bond that we've passed that we're dragging our feet on, but we really need to focus on that. And this is an opportunity to pay for that without having to ask the taxpayers for more and more money. So right now it's still in a holding pattern. We're waiting for new council members to be able to really change it. But it's going to be an annual fight in terms of how much goes where.
Well, that's kind of hard to know what the real challenges are and what the council can do about it, because I've come to the consideration that most everything of true, relevant significance for the city and the people who live here, all that's covered in private, behind closed doors in an executive session where the public is not allowed to know, and whoever is in that session is prohibited by law from sharing that information with the public. So I don't know. I'd like to know.
Venue sales tax, I think that is a great question, and there's a lot of misconception on what the venue tax is going around the community. And venue tax is so important to Universal City because we are a small town. We got 20,000 people, right? We're not San Antonio, where if we had a 1% sales tax or venue tax, then, that's millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? Can pay for everything that it needs to. Universal City, we got to cap that out as much as we can, right? And that venue tax, it's part of the sales tax, right? So it's not a burden on Universal City. It's a piece of the sales tax. So we are capping that out as much as the state allows us at 2%, so we can keep bringing in as much as we can, right? Which turn around and goes to all the different things in the city to keep it moving forward, right? So the venue tax is not like a property tax. It's not something that, all of us residents, you're paying 2% today, and you could pay 1%, if you live somewhere else, right? Or if we just vote to reduce that to 1%. It doesn't work that way, right? And we can't turn around and use the venue tax for just whatever we want. We can't take the venue tax and put it towards streets. We can't take the venue tax and, just put it in any part of the budget. It is used for specific items, right? And the revitalization of UC, keeping that growing and investing that back into businesses is what we need to do.
Right now, they've split the venue sales tax that comes in, so the golf course is still getting a portion of it. And then they're putting, council decides on where the rest of it can go. I think it's really important that we continue this venue tax. It's really a small percentage. I've heard it's a burden on our residents. Well, Kevin, every time you come in to have something at our bar at our golf course, we're getting your money. We're getting money from everyone around. And it's not property tax. It's everyone who comes into town. Or if you live in Universal City and you're purchasing things on Amazon, you're giving into it. So our golf course actually gave us over $1.5 million last year in sales tax. The golf course is producing, but the golf course is old. We have a top-notch golf course. The bar and event center is getting all kinds of great events there. I had an event the other night. We had 190 people show up for an event there. It's old. We need new bathrooms. We need new flooring. We need a new kitchen. It's like living in an old house and all of a sudden you won the lottery. It's time to fix it up. And then we'll get even better. We can get even better and have more money coming in. And people come into Universal City to do this. So I'm all for keeping the venue tax where it is right now. And then after the expenses, and the golf course will be self-sufficient. The debt is paid off. So after we get everything cleaned up and make room for more people, then let's decide. But you know what? Our council is put on the board to make decisions for the residents. So many people in Universal City don't even know that we have a golf course. Then they think it's a private golf course. It's not. It's open to the public. Everyone can use it. So how can they make a decision on whether they want to fund it or not if they don't have the proper information about what the golf course is and how much it brings in? So I'm all for, let's let council make the decisions on what to do with the venue tax, but contact your council people and let them know what your feelings are. I don't want to go and vote for something I don't have enough information on.
In the last year, essentially, council in a compromise decision has split the venue tax between that portion of sales tax that goes directly to the golf course versus essentially that percentage of the sales tax that goes to the golf course and now something called linear parks. It was to be a 50-50 split as approved by council. However, essentially it was sort of a shortfall in council because the real decision there is whether to put the venue tax considerations before the voters. In council meetings prior to their decision, essentially there at one time was a unanimous agreement that it should go to the voters. But then with some input from the city manager, essentially council came up with a compromise solution, which I do not think was fair to the voters of Universal City. And I can go on that. Why wasn't it fair to the citizens of Universal City? And the reason for that is if the venue tax, which is again a sales tax, is directed to one or two elements within city expenses, essentially it's not going to the general fund. And if it's not going to the general fund, it can't be applied over a broad spectrum of problems that the city has. So that's extremely important to understand. If the venue tax does not go to the general fund, then council has little recourse to and an inability to use it for other city priorities. That's the big thing. The other big thing is venue tax has become a very large item in the city budget. For example, it's about $1.8 million a year. $1.8 million a year going to infrastructure would repair 1.5 long streets in Universal City. So essentially, it's not taking it's not taking that tax money and directing it to just one or two things. It's making council have it to assess the priority needs of the citizens of Universal City.
Question 4. What are the biggest challenges facing the city council right now, and do you have some solutions?
The biggest that I see in the past, I've been in city council for 6 years. You know, a lot of people say we say yes to everything, and that's just not true. But we did have a nice, steady. We didn't have drawn out 3-hour council meetings, and as things have shifted, they're getting longer. There's more debates, debates are fantastic. You know, we all need that. Everybody has their. I don't think anybody, you know, doesn't want Universal City to work well, and everybody on council wants everything to work well. Everybody wants the future of Universal City being great, I believe, but we just have different ways of getting there. Some people on council don't want change. Some people on council do want change. I'm one of the ones that I always say change is inevitable. Are we going to make great change, and or is it just going to let things fall apart? If you don't change anything, it just goes into disarray. So I support that, and I feel a vision for the future, and that's one of the things I personally think, that there are some people on the council that don't have a vision going forward. And when I say a vision going forward, I don't mean 5 years from now. I mean the 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road when we're not around here, which is something that I believe I was elected to do, to make sure that Universal City stays Universal City even when I'm gone or you're gone. So we get some disarray there. And sometimes it can be backbiting, and that is not good. And I really hope that ends up going away. Whoever gets elected, that we can come to terms to where we can have some saying things there and not have 3-hour drug out council meetings. So,
well, I think the biggest challenge is the objectivity that I kind of mentioned. We have a very solid core inner circle that wants to make sure that the city has whatever they want, and they control through cronyism who gets to be on any of the boards, who gets to participate on any of the committees. And so unless you're in their inner circle, you don't get to participate. So there's a large section of the population that doesn't feel represented, and rightfully so. They don't get any kind of consideration. When something's brought up, it's shot down very quickly to say, no, this is how we do it. We're not going to consider that. So I think new representation is important. We have a lot of economic development going on that we're trying to force as a city, which I think is inappropriate, but that's something that's currently being fleshed out. We have that large tract of land behind HEB on 1604 we're in negotiations to try to make that into something, and hopefully we can do that without throwing a whole bunch of taxpayer money around to make it happen. But we're not actually in a terrible spot. We can afford our budget. We've got some growth. We have plenty of money coming in. We don't have a lot of significant challenges in my mind, except for trying to rein in what the city's doing and refocus it on what it should be focused on, which is police, fire, and infrastructure.
Once again, that gets back to executive sessions. Like I said, I think most everything is held private. I think thanks to Bernie Rubel, they're getting hammered with requests for information, and they keep touting about how much that's costing them. Well, if they would just be open and forthright with everything, people wouldn't have to be requesting freedom of information requests. I mean, what's going on that they try to keep it so quiet? I mean, has the city come to the conclusion that the average resident is such a self-centered bore that, you know, they're going to cause all kinds of problems if they know what's going on, or maybe they're just too stupid to understand? I don't know. I don't know why they're doing it, but I am sure from the people that I know in the city, they believe what they're doing is noble and just.
That's a great question. From what I've seen, and I've been going to city council meetings on and off for the past year or so, maybe a year and a half since I've been on Parks and Rec. And what I see a lot is division and so many divided votes and what seemed like easy conversations, and they blow up into these hour-long conversations. So one thing that is a huge issue for UC and for what's on the council. I mean, how can you get things done and focused on the residents when there's disagreement back and forth, or the mayor's constantly having to break a tie, right? That's not good for the city, right? It's okay to have different opinions, right? But at the same time, we need to keep the city moving forward. And if we're constantly at a stalemate on council, we're not going to get things moving forward. And it's not fun. It's not fun for a resident to watch things back and forth, right? And then also, we need to make sure that we're educated on the things that we're talking about, right? So we can't just say, there's a zebra crossing the street, and so that means the tax rate is 3% and, the slides are broken. That makes no sense, right? We need to use our educated city staff. They're incredible, right? So go talk to them, and so I think council needs to do a better job reaching out and saying, hey, say city manager, hey, public works director, right? I don't understand this. Can you help explain this to me prior to those council meetings, right? So that way those council meetings can be done doing the hard work that needs to be done, which is the voting and getting things moving in the right direction.
I don't know about solutions until I actually get on the dais and see, firsthand what's coming on. The challenges, I think, are communication. We need to be able to bring the residents together. We have, it seems we have the yay-sayers and the naysayers, and no one wants to listen to each other. So I think the council needs to come together and listen to everything and agree to disagree on so many topics, but that's going to be having a concise council that wants to work as a team, that wants to work together, and try to get these two different sides to agree on what's going on, or at least have that conversation and not just fight about it.
Oh, sure. Of course. That's why I'm running. No. The venue tax is key. And the reason for that is that if venue tax goes to the general fund, then the general fund, then the other question is, can it be used to reduce property taxes? Very important. Universal City has higher property taxes than any of the surrounding cities. If we compare Universal City's property tax to Selma, for example, for 1 year of property tax paid in Universal City, citizens in Selma essentially are paid up for 2.7 years. Now, let me repeat that, 2.7 years. And for the average homeowner in Universal City that has a home value of approximately $270,000 value, at the end of 10 years, that's $8,790. $8,790, okay? So basically, property tax relief, we're not going to get it down to Selma's level because Selma has such a great sales tax base. But by utilizing the venue tax to put it in the general fund, we can start approaching some reasonable value. Getting it below 5%, I think, is extremely important. And my target number is 0.495%, which is $495 for every $100,000 of appraised value of the house.
Question 5, Judson ISD is holding some meetings right now to look for efficiencies in their programs. Do you see any efficiencies that can be improved on within the city government?
Well, I just got back. I went to the groundbreaking for the bonds and the fencing, which I think communication between the city and Judson ISD is needs to be improved. And I personally am trying to sign on. Mayor Williams used to go to a lot of the Judson ISD meetings, and he will no longer be running. So I've kind of taken it on as a mantle to try to be a contact so I can find out what's going on and communicate that back to the city, my concerns and the concerns of the citizens of the city. So yeah, communication is a big issue, and just making sure we get the right people. I like the board we have now, especially since I'll give a shout out to Monica Ryan, which she has. I think she asks the questions and she keeps things moving, and she's actually kind of made things kind of exciting and kind of brought me into, I need to know more about it. I'm not going to be a good candidate for or a good councilman for Universal City unless I understand those issues, because there's a lot of money involved with spending a lot in the taxes for Judson ISD, and just need to stay informed. So, and I saw myself lacking on that side, saying I went to a few things, a few meetings, talking to Monica. I do that quite a bit now when she sends me all kinds of information, and so communication and knowing a vision for the future. My daughter has been part of this system, and she goes to JECA. She's graduating this year, like I said, with a 2-year associate's degree. Couldn't be more proud. And that's, programs like that are just very worthwhile. Not everybody's going to college, or some people need that extra, that once you get out of this Judson ISD and you move on, you have that background and that knowledge behind you, which is something we really need.
There's always things that could be cut. Like, for example, we want to spend, or the city wants to spend $350,000 on a master plan to have somebody come in and tell us what we should do and give us a big book that we're going to throw in a drawer. But stuff like that shouldn't be done. But my focus is more on the revenue side, because if we can control the revenue, then they're going to have to figure out a way what's important to them in other ways. So right now we have so much revenue coming in that it's not really a priority to take things seriously. So the golf course is one. We're not technically running it like a business. We're trying to collect fees to cover the costs, but because it has this dedicated tax revenue, there's not really an impetus to say, oh, maybe we should get serious about evaluating what are we charging for green fees and how do we make sure that we're covering our costs. We have this crutch to lean back on. So we need to pull that crutch away so that we will operate it like a business. The other big elephant in the room is the Economic Development Corporation. And we give them about $2 million a year that they try to then spend in a way that's smart for the city. Let me ask you a question, Kevin. If you were a rich trust fund baby and you had $2 million a year that you wanted to give away, and you said, I want to make an impact economically, do you think that the best way to use that would be to give that $2 million to an unelected board at the city and say, hey, please reinvest this in our community somehow and get us a return on our money?
Probably not.
Good answer. But that's exactly what we're doing. So as a community, we're pooling our tax dollars together. We're giving them $2 million and saying, hey, please take this and multiply it. It's really not practical for a board of residents. And it's not denigrating them. It's just saying that they're not going to necessarily understand market forces. It's not their money. They're not risking their own capital. It's other people's money. It's not going to be wisely spent. And we're seeing that. People will say, well, we need the Economic Development Corporation because if we don't have it, then the sky is going to fall. We've got empty storefronts that are going to beget other empty storefronts. But we've had the EDC since 1996. We're not really seeing this giant overhaul that's been done by the EDC. And people will think, well, we got to have an EDC because everybody else has one. But we've got 30 municipalities in the area. Only 12 of them have an Economic Development Corporation. And of those, only 6 of them have an Economic Development Corporation with the sales tax that's as high as our sales tax. And you look at our neighbors like Selma, you don't have an Economic Development Corporation and you're able to land Costco for a major deal for the city. You can have tax abatement agreements that don't give money away. They only return what excess money they bring in. That's what we should be focused on, which we can do without an Economic Development Corporation. I would argue that $2 million should be pulled away, and some of that fluff that's being spent out of the Economic Development Corporation would go away as well, back to your efficiency argument, and free up more money for our property taxes. So just the venue tax and the EDC tax alone are about $4 million a year. That's about 40% of our total property tax levy. So you can just imagine if we repurpose that, what we could do with it.
I'm going to keep diverting back to the executive session. I think the common, what do you want to call it? What do you call that? The urban legend, if you will, is that the city is just dragging their feet. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. Why is it taking so long? I've got a feeling that to those who are actually privileged to the information, I think the city's done a whole lot more than people think they have. Where they're going with it, I don't know. I wish I did. I've got to get on the council to find out. Then I got to hope I can keep my mouth buttoned up in case I find something I don't like. That's only a misdemeanor, though.
Absolutely. And I think they're already doing a great job of moving that forward, right? The city, the police department is already working on completely digitizing their records. So that way they're spending less and less time on these open records requests, right? There are so many of those. It blew my mind just recently, the amount of hours spent on open records requests. And so the step that the police department is taking to digitize those records is going to make that process a lot smoother, which in turn is going to reduce the amount of hours the city is spending on pulling all these open record requests, right? Which then in turns lowers that budget and lowers our taxes for all of our residents.
There's always ways to improve, always. One of the things I feel about Universal City is I believe our city manager hires very well. I think our directors are extremely educated and they have a lot of experience with them, and they are good communicators. So I've seen the city come with the budgeting process and saying, okay, this is what we've got. We've got to cut here, do this there. I'll use parks kind of as an example. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, our parks were horrible. People didn't want to come to our parks. And now we have generated the most beautiful parks, and everyone's going, well, how? Well, the city budgets for Randy, and he gets a certain amount of money. Randy then spends the next 6 months looking for matching grants. He doesn't go and spend the $500,000 that they were giving him. He pockets it. He says, let's find matching grants. And he gets them. And now he's got $1 million to spend or $1.5 million to spend. I think all of our directors kind of look at it this way. Okay, this is my budget. How can I make that money go the furthest? What's out there? So sitting in the audience, you see one view. Sitting on the dais, you see a completely different view. You have more inside information. But from my years of being a part of the city, I'm very proud of how our managers, directors work together to take that little bit of money. But there's always room for improvement, always.
Absolutely. And the absolutely starts with the budget workshop. Okay. Right now, essentially, it's a catch-22 process for council and the citizens of Universal City, where essentially the departments present, but they don't present essentially the needs, the key infrastructure needs. Rather, it's sort of a global presentation of wants rather than needs for the city. Now, the big deal here that we can tie into the other comment is that if you require the city manager to produce a budget that's at 0.495%, cut the crap, cut the overhead, bring it down so that council can first decide on what budget is essential. What budget is essential? And then look at what can be done to get the wants of the city. So that's extraordinarily important to reverse the process. Instead of starting with the wants in a budget workshop, rather to put the tax level limit there first and go and have a budget that'll address that and then add to that. Because it's a terrible catch-22 process, and every year the city manager throws in extra requirements that result in council increasing the tax rate for, and that's all wrong for the citizens.
Question 6. What is the latest with the aviation district?
Well, the aviation district, right now we're looking at, we've purchased a couple properties in that area. some people, I want to take this off the board right now. A lot of people have said that, okay, we're moving people out and, trying to get people out of it. We have not approached anybody on that. The land that we've purchased for the future of the aviation district and our master plan has been people wanting to sell that to us, to put pieces of the puzzle together. So that, again, like I said before, is something that investors, we're trying to make it to where any investor or developer coming in knows that they have the backing of the city council and the citizens. So when they start spending their money, they know they're going to be backed and that they're going to want to invest in the aviation district as a whole and our vision for the future. So like I said, inside is that dry erase pen that, some people say, well, we might be putting an F-theory over here, so why do we have one in here? Well, that was kind of a dry erase plan, a vision for that area. If they find something better, then we can talk and make sure that it's something that the citizens want. We are looking at that plan of making more walking and biking space, making it a nice meeting area for the city, and making it nightlife. And then people go, oh, nightlife, bars. No, that doesn't mean a bunch of bars. That means nightlife where people can meet, have food, park, visions of being able to have shops with parking and maybe rental, residential, above that kind of. I don't want to say a mini Pearl, but yes. But with the mini Pearl, people say, oh, gentrification. And I know that's a heavy issue, gentrification. But I look at it as it's not bringing gentrification, it's bringing wealth in that area. That area is falling apart. So do we do nothing and let it go into disrepair? Or do we invest in that area and make sure it's a lively wealth tool for the city? If wealth goes up in that area, is your property values going to go up? Yes. Is that a good thing? Yes. So is raising your property taxes a good thing? No. That's why we need to bring that wealth in so we can make sure that we keep the property taxes down. But nobody wants their property values going down, and nobody wants that in disrepair. And like I say, if we don't do anything, that's going to be what it is. And I'm definitely not a proponent of that. But if you look into that aviation district master plan, I think it's beautiful and something we definitely need.
Brass tacks what it is. It's a redevelopment of downtown Universal City. We're going to buy businesses because they can't sell to anybody else because we rezoned them. Then we're going to tear them down and we're going to make something great. It's like that. If you ever watch South Park where they had the underpants gnomes, the whole premise is they go and they steal your underpants and then they go underground and they have these meetings, these business meetings, and they say, first, step one, we get the underpants. Step two, profit. That's exactly what we're doing in Universal City. We're like, let's buy all these properties. Then step two, magic. So we're going to tear them all down. We're going to spend millions of dollars doing this. And then we're going to build an amphitheater next to the railroad tracks underneath the flight path. That's kind of like what's been pitched. Or $400,000 to $500,000 attached row townhouses down there by the railroad tracks and underneath the flight path. Maybe it's going to happen. But what we're surely going to do is spend a bunch of money buying these properties, condemning these businesses to where they can't sell to anybody else, and making them feel like they're really an unwanted part of our town, which is really sad. So that's the latest. I'm going to continue to vote no against it. I've been no for a long time. The people who like it say we got to do this because you can't have a mechanic shop down there. We have too many Mexican food places. But I say let's own it. If we have a lot of Mexican food places, let's be the Mexican food capital of Bexar County. Let's sell it. Let's bring people in here to buy our Mexican food. Why are we want to? These are people that are risking their livelihoods to create a business, and we're saying, yeah, you guys suck, and we want something different. That's not how I want to be as a city. But the big thing is there's no plan in terms of how we're going to spend this money and what's going to be at the end of the rainbow, and that's what we need and we don't have. Until we do that, I'm still going to be a no.
When they talk about the golf course and this and everything else, because people are tired of all the money going to the golf course. They don't use the golf course. They don't plan to use the golf course. Couldn't this money be done better with something? Well, we don't know. I mean, what is really going on? They may be doing excellent work in the background, but we don't know. We're not allowed to know. How can anybody sit here and, well, I would do this and they're doing that wrong? No, because unless you're on the council, you don't know, because you don't get to go into executive session. That'd be a great, you know who could answer these questions? Well, Paul Nigerian and Phil Vaughn. They've been, in fact, Paul Nigerian's been on the council long enough. He ought to know everything going on. Good luck opening that can. But, anybody that hasn't been on the council, that hasn't been in these executive sessions, how can they say they know what's going on? I think we've got a great city, and I think they do a good job of running it. There's always room for improvement. There's always room to, be more efficient, have less waste, redirect things. I mean, consider we just had Winterfest. Okay? From what I understand, the majority of the people who go to Winterfest don't even live in Universal City. Now, fine, if when full accounting is done, like a regular corporation would have to, if it turns a profit, especially since a lot of times it's muddy and it's going to be destructive to the field and have to be repaired, if when all is said and done, the city turns a profit, I don't care if it's $2. They have fun, people have fun, it didn't cost the city any money. But if it's costing the city of money to entertain people from Shirts and wherever, they ought to reconsider whether or not they should keep doing that. Instead, how about, have a Universal City only, a city picnic, and do the old corny picnic games and everything else where people could actually go there, have a great time, not have to shell out $15 per kid or whatever to go in, only to spend more money on the inside to the vendors. Decommercialize it, and let's get back. They used to say they considered Universal City like Mayberry. How about we get back to being like Mayberry?
So the aviation district, I love that whole area. And I spent a lot of time talking with our city manager to really get a good understanding because, I've heard a little bit from here and from these people and these people, but I really wanted to get it, straight from the horse's mouth, right? And understand what the vision is. And I sat there and I was in complete amazement, right? And what started out as a 10-year plan, we're already 4 years down the road, and we've realized that it's more like a 15, maybe 20-year plan to get it to where we need to be. But it's moving, and it's moving forward. And that whole area, it's underutilized, right? There's a lot of older homes, a lot of older businesses, and I get excited about what that aviation district is going to do. There's a couple businesses down there already that are thriving and doing incredible things and bringing money back to the city. Gather Brewing has already brought back $75,000 straight to UC in their pocket. So think about that times 10, times 15, times 20 different businesses around how much more revenue is going to come to our city, right? And the more revenue that we get from the venue tax, right, the less our property taxes, or not our property tax, but the less our taxes go down, right? So it is the more businesses that we have and the better businesses that we have in this area and across UC, the more people that want to shop there. And the more people that shop there increases that venue tax, which is more money back to the city, right? So aviation district is moving along. The EDC for Universal City is doing a great job finding different areas, right? And I encourage you to go and research it. It's up on my page. I have a whole story on the aviation district and why I'm supporting it. But I also have attached the link to the original announcement on the city website where you can take a look at it and see some really cool visuals if you're not super familiar with it. But with that, the city it's changing, right? So what initially was the aviation district in 2020 when the plan was announced it was very, here it is, right? And since then, we've already started changing because it's about what's available, right? And it's not like we're just going to go in there and be the big bad wolf and say, you have to sell your area, you have to sell your area and give it to us. We're not going in and using eminent domain to take these things from people, right? We are being strategic and saying when things are coming up, let's go out and make a fair offer and grab it and then get it to in someone's space that fits that vision. So Aviation District is moving along nicely.
The Aviation District is designed to be kind of a hub for the community, our own little town square that Universal City has never had, kind of a walking area. Let's say it's a mini Pearl, not the lady with the hat, but it's where we want to revitalize the area. We can pull the people from Randolph in, Shirts, Converse, all around. We want to be a destination. We want young families to live in that area called Old Town. We want them to come in and see these homes and renovate these homes and walk across the street and take your kids to an ice cream store or just kind of walk around, have a little park to sit in. The gatherers are starting. They're our base. They were wonderful. They've shown what can happen here. So we have to fix our infrastructure in order to bring the developers in to tell us what they want to do. The city has put out a vision and saying, this is the caliber of what we want. This isn't necessarily exactly what we want, but we want to show you what our idea is. And these are our standards. And so down the road, the developers can come in and say, oh, well, how about this, that, and the other thing? Because it's city-owned, the properties are city-owned, then the city can say, yeah, no, it's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this, and the city can kind of handhold it and take it that direction. But we have to be able to put the infrastructure in. We have to be a city that goes in and actually helps the businesses, give them what they need to succeed. This is a long project. This is 10 years down the road, but who knew the Gather was going to come in and start it early? And we have the Screaming Chameleon. They're starting to come in. So I think in a city as old as ours, a city that can't grow out, has to redo what we have and make it better and make the families. I have my daughter and her family live here. I want them to have places to go. 9 o'clock, our streets roll up. Everyone's in bed at 9 o'clock. But these young families are going, God, it's such a beautiful night. It was 110 degrees out, but now it's 80. Let's go out and get some ice cream or something. Have a nightlife, not a bar life, but a nightlife where families can go. I'm very excited about the Aviation District.
Which district? Which district? If you ask even the councilmen that are on the Economic Development Board, what are you talking about? Okay, where is the Aviation District? And what you'll find is there are actually 2 formats for the Aviation District, and they tell you that the Aviation District is a concept. It's not a plan. Okay, yet essentially we've spent $3.2 million in a bond, and significant monies are going from the Economic Development Committee to the Aviation District without a business plan for it. I spent $78 out of my own money to do an open records request to find out how much commercial development interest there is in the Aviation District within the last year by asking for emails and from all related parties. And basically, I was first told that there are 10,000 emails that the city has to go through. In reality, there were 50. And of those 50, essentially the emails had to do with grand opening of the Great Chameleon or whatever the food truck area is. There was only one interested party in commercially develop one property within what is defined as the Aviation District. Now, that being said, I think that the issue with the Aviation District is to bring it down to size, something manageable by the city of Universal City, so that it's not going to drain us white from the Economic Development Committee pouring money into it. I think it's a farce to spend $110,000, for example, for putting in a temporary parking lot at this point in time in the aviation district. We missed a great opportunity in council to simply ask the property owner that's most affected if he would lease that property from the city, since he would be the primary beneficiary. Now, this property owner, a great guy, excellent business type thing, but the city has already paid that business $500,000 in order to for their establishment. They're successful, great asset to the city, but they're running a cost, and they should realize that they should be kicking in to their own parking area, financing their own parking area. So big deal is, hey, the Economic Development Committee, depending upon which report you read, has already spent 60% of the bond monies associated with the aviation district, and essentially there is no commercial partners that will develop the plan. In fact, again, you look at the city documentation, there's no definition. There are two blocks, a blue, I've drawn them out, blue and red type thing. And the other thing that has to happen is the Economic Development Committee's got to come to bat. If there's going to be infrastructure improvements within the aviation district, they have to come to bat and start paying for that rather than taking out of sewer funds and street funds from the city. It's extremely important that they understand where they're going with that project.
Question 7. Councilwoman Ashton Bowman asked, last year, some of council was trying to increase taxes by only 2%, yet a 6% increase was passed. Council refused to cut the $19 million budget by a mere $200,000. How would you have voted and why?
I did vote. We went and brought it down to point. If you're talking about that, we ended up bringing it down to 5.1. I know they wanted 5.50. But I feel that the budget, the way it is, we take a lot of time on those budgets, and I don't know how much that money would have funded whatever, or versus what we needed at the time. So, and I'll just make a long answer short that I think we found kind of a little sweet spot, depending on how the money is spent, and we come back for our next budget, what type of surplus we've came up with or whatever, because we were going with a bunch of numbers. You don't know exactly what's going to go on. I am not in favor of raising that next time at all. I would like to either keep it the same or, depending on what kind of numbers come back, lower it. I know there's 4.9, but I'd like to at least go to 2.50. If the numbers bear out that we were right on budget, then I think we keep it the same. If it bears that it just wasn't enough, I don't see that happening. I think it's plenty, and I think there's either room there to stay the same or go down. But sometimes if you get locked into going down more, there's a few things that don't get funded. But I'm looking at that very seriously. And again, I would not be a proponent of raising that next time just to raise it. I think we've got it nailed down.
Well, you can imagine me throwing a hissy fit at the meeting trying to accomplish this. Everybody talks about like cutting. We're just arguing about, do we keep the taxes flat on people or do we raise them? So I came in flat. Let's not ask people to pay more than they paid last year. That was obviously a no-go. That wasn't going to work. So then we had a compromise rate, which was about a 2% increase on homeowners or a 6% increase. And that's what we landed on. It was a joke. It was $200,000 difference, which is less than 1% of our annual budget. But we said, no, we can't possibly do that. And we're in this situation for a couple of reasons. One is because we used to be broke. The city was in dire straits, and we were very dependent on property taxes. So there's a mindset at the city that we can't cut property taxes because we're so dependent on it. But really, it's less than half of our annual budget on our revenue side. So the changes in the tax rate don't really make much of a difference to the city. But an extra 4% to a homeowner, it means something. Yes, maybe it's not several $100s, but when we're asking for more and more and more, and when we don't really need it, it's just wrong, in my opinion. And so I voted to keep taxes flat on people. That failed. Then I fought pretty hard to go with a compromise rate of 2%, and that failed.
Well, given the option of voting that up or down, I would have voted it down. Why? Because I would like to have seen a tax decrease. The city's turning a profit. I mean, our city is very well run. It's fiscally in excellent shape. There is waste going on. Probably not enough to scream to the roof, but like I mentioned myself, okay? In the last 3 years, costs have gone way up. My little $210,000 house, so I'm told now, I'm paying taxes on it, is now $275,000. Aren't I lucky? Well, except I bought it for a home, not for an investment. So I'm not so lucky. Everything else has gone up. Meanwhile, because of the economy, my salary has gone down. All right? Which, now the city, I understand inflation hits everybody, including the city. But something else that hits the city, and I'm sorry, I don't agree with it. Guaranteed pay raises across the board. Okay? Cost of living increases, whatever you want to call it. I'm in the private sector. I don't get those. I can't remember the last time I got a pay raise. It was about 10 years ago. I do remember the last time my income went down. They sold one of the dealerships, and that cut off some of my salary. I mean, it was understandable. Less work, less money. But people should be paid a fair wage, but since when should working for a public entity pay more than the private sector and be guaranteed pay raises? Do they pay them that horrible? Well, that's a good question, because we have no idea what everybody's getting paid. That'd be nice to know, a schedule of what all the different positions pay and everything, so we knew exactly how much everybody's going to get paid. I mean, I don't know how it gets out, but we have a good idea what the city manager makes. I have no idea what the average city employee is getting paid.
This is a great topic. I was at those meetings, those budget meetings, because I was there to support for Parks and Rec. And during those meetings, all the departments are there saying, hey, we need all these things, right? Police is there saying, hey, we need new bikes so we can up our bike program, right? Public Works is there saying, hey, we need these different items to keep our parks looking great, right? The library's there. All these different departments are there doing things. And when they would come and they would say, okay, we need this, council was like, yeah, sure, let's do that because you do need that. Let's do that because you do need that. It was several items that they were doing, right? So they're listening to the budget, right? Or listening to these different things, adding these things to the budget because it's needed, right? And you can't set a tax rate before you set the budget. You set the budget and then you set the tax rate, right? And so what was happening here, this $200,000, $250,000 came back and was like, after the budget was already set, right? They said, oh, well, we want to reduce it $250,000. Okay. But we just gave, the meetings before we said, okay, you can have this and you can have this, right? Across the board because it was needed. So it was interesting to watch as a resident and just someone on the Parks and Rec Commission to watch that unfold. And then the other piece of that too is if I were on council, I would have voted to keep it as the budget that we set, right? Because we didn't just willy-nilly come and say, hey, police department, we want to give you these things that you need, right? You need all these medical exams, so you don't get them anymore after we already told you, we said you could, right? So I want to stick to what we said, right? And do what we said we were going to do. And then you thinking about it, $250,000 sounds like a ton of money to me, right? If I had an extra 250K, I'd be rolling, right? You see me rolling down the street in a Lambo or something, a cheap Lambo, a used one, But $250,000 to Universal City on a $19 million budget, right, is not what it means to a regular person, right? And $250,000 is like $15 to $20 a person, right? If it were me and I could donate, we'll just say donate $15 to $20, so that way my police department had the things that they need to keep our city safe. Here's a 20. I want that because I want to keep my city safe, right? And then the other piece of that too is like the budget that's an important piece, and we have to plan for the future, right? You can't just take it and narrowly focus on what is in front of us today, right? You have to plan for the future. Like, did you know that their fire trucks were on there? $5 million for two fire trucks? That blew my mind. I had no idea that fire trucks could cost that much, right? But they are. It just is what it is. It's not something that UC is trying to, get by us on with an expensive fire truck, but we have to plan for those things.
I don't see where $200,000 is going to make a difference in a multi-million-dollar budget. That's like me and my monthly budget wanting to know if I can save $25 by not taking the family out to lunch. $250,000 if you spread it out amongst the taxpayers, is pennies. And you've got to look at the big picture. I've heard a lot about our high tax rate. Well, yes, it is a little bit higher, but people are paying more for their taxes because Bexar County Appraisal District skyrocketed everyone's appraisals. Mine went up over $30,000. So yeah, my taxes went up, and our taxes have been frozen because we're over 65. You've got to fight Bexar County tax appraisal. When you get your tax, go in and protest it. I had mine drop by over $25,000 last year, so my taxes stayed the same. If you're going to sit back and not do anything and not be proactive about saying, I don't live in a $300,000 home, let's be reasonable here, then you are going to pay higher taxes. But we have to meet our budget in order to maintain our vital infrastructure and services.
All right. Again, this gets into the process of how that whole thing evolves. Council becomes trapped into a tit for tat on what the rate should be. The tax rate should be, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. If the city manager comes to council with something different than what they passed in the budget workshop, then she should reduce the amount of money in the budget that was passed in the budget workshop and go with something that's a higher priority. Now that happens. We can understand that. That being said, the process would stop at, if this were the council seat, would stop here whenever you say, give me a budget at 0.495% first, okay? And we're going to run this like a business, an efficient business. I don't want essentially things like, a great example is that every year $100,000 is put into a contingency fund for the Snowfest. Why is that? Because essentially it's become a carnival event and they have to have $60,000 minimally in a slush fund in order to cover the carnies if they don't have work for the day that they've set up, type thing. Okay, I understand that. But why in God's green heaven do the citizens of Universal City have to pay $100,000 a year into that promotion fund? At the end of 10 years, that's $1 million. $1 million that basically disappears. Okay, it disappears. And is credited to good management because it's an excess. So there are lots of things that could be cut, and that's just an example of $100,000 that, if balanced forward, okay, would save the taxpayers money.
Question 8. Universal City resident Cheryl Maxwell asks, what is your vision for our city 10 years down the road?
Wow. Well, I'm retiring here, and I don't plan on going anywhere. So my vision is that I'm still alive in Universal City, paying Universal City taxes. But my vision is having, like I said before, is having a senior facility, having a real good step in the direction of that aviation district, and making sure that is just progressing along the way it should. And if I am reelected, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that vision stays forward. For 10 years from now, I want to see some really good things going on in the aviation district, as it is happening now. But 10 years from now should be a really good time period to see some major changes down there, and they are going to be changing sooner than that. Excuse me. My vision is and I've talked to people and they've liked it too, and said, wow. And I'd like to think outside the box, is having our golf course, not only serving up golfers, and having that hotel full, having wedding venues, having other venues there, having even another building put on there so we can hold more than one or two events, because we just don't have the room there. Again, making destination spot, having that parking lot, which is already being worked on, being expanded out, so we don't have, we don't have to park in the side of people's houses, and just having a cohesive, beautiful foundation. Is we have our parks that we've been working on. I think they're fantastic. They're always needing work, and getting the population kind of settled out, looking at these areas that we had, like old Junkie Joe's and everything, looking at a lot of the visions people have for that, and make sure that gets filled up. Because in 10 years from now, we are landlocked. In 10 years from now, we're done. We're almost built out now. So being able to steady that business and property tax to where we can level things out and make sure that business here in Universal City stays strong. And there's no reason it can't be. And having a good cooperation between our Tri-City areas here, Selma, Universal City, Live Oak. You know me, I go to a lot of events, and I meet the mayors and the council people and the city managers, and we're able to bounce ideas off of each other. It's not just Universal City. It is for me, but it's all of us surrounding. And it's like when one person falls, the other one does, and that I make sure that doesn't happen. And that's my vision.
Well, we're going to be built out, and so this is my pipe dream. Is we've got a solid, stable, low tax rate. We have great police and fire, which we have now, so we're already there, and then great infrastructure. We're woefully behind on that. So we need a plan to where we can figure out how do we finance this long term so we can cycle through all of our infrastructure, and when we're done, we start back over again. That's what I want to be at. I want to have a golf course that's run like a business that doesn't take from the taxpayers, and I want an economic development corporation to be either repurposed to help us with those other goals that we should be focusing on. But that's what I'm hoping for, because we're going to be built out. We're not going to have all of these other ideas, and we should have the city down to a science where it runs like a clockwork and it's not a controversy. That will bring in people with a low, stable tax rate and great infrastructure, and bring in businesses. That's what I want to see in 10 years. The question is a little bit misleading, because the other side will say, oh, you don't want to be short-sighted. So it's their catchphrase, but really it's code. It's code for give us all your tax dollars. We don't know why. We don't necessarily have a need for it, but continue to give us as much money as possible, because we're going to find a way to spend it, and we know better, and we know what's best for you. So don't be short-sighted. Continues to give us a lot more revenue, because we might need it in the future or want it in the future. So in no way can we ever reduce it. That's being short-sighted, is what they would say. Or they'll say something like the aviation district, where you don't want to be short-sighted, because we need to do this redevelopment. It doesn't matter how much it costs. It's imperative that we do this, because whatever complaint du jour. So my focus is that the city should be a lean, mean fighting machine focused on those primary areas. If we have a little bit extra cash and we want to do something with it, we can talk about that. But That's not what we've mandated to the city. The purpose of the city exists is to keep us safe and to do the infrastructure. It's a limited government. It's supposed to have a very fine-tuned, this is our priorities, and not have this mission creep where we're getting into everything else, which isn't going to be the most effective use of our tax dollars. So that's where my 10 years is we're on an operating even keel, nothing major going on, and we're just executing.
Fewer apartments, fewer rental properties. The older neighborhoods, cleaner and nicer, and a community that actually comes together and neighbors know each other. Let the rest of the world keep going where it's going, and we can go another direction. And I think that starts with the city that actually wants to reach out to the people and get them involved.
Love this question. And I say that 10 years down the road, I'm a perfect person to answer this because I'm still going to be here. My kids are, right now, they're 10 and 5. So in 10 years, they're going to be 20 and 15. So my little's still going to be going to school, probably at one of these high schools around here. Who knows which one by then? Hopefully we have another one because we've grown so much. But 10 years from now, I see my family and I being able to walk down the aviation district and grab a bite to eat, hang out, maybe do some karaoke with my kids, right? In a small little nightlife area out there in that aviation district. And I'm not talking like 2 a.m. nightlife because, I'm only 31, but I can't stay out late anymore. I get tired. The whole next day I'm ruined if I stay out late, right? So I'm talking like 9 p.m. nightlife, right? Just late enough. It's dark outside. It's cooler because, it gets those 100-degree days in the summer. We want that sun to go away. So I want to be able to enjoy the city in these small areas and then walk back home because I had a couple glasses of wine, right? I don't have to worry about driving. I can just walk in this area and it's set up. It's all set up for it, right? And then I want to keep UC in with that same vision that I had earlier, right? That it became my second love. I want to keep it that same vision for people moving in here, right? And I want these parks to keep being top notch, right? Veterans Park, I mean, it's got to be one of the best in the nation with the way that park is designed, right? With that fighter jet that's on the ground like that. It's incredible. There's hardly any like that in the whole country, right? And it's here in Universal City, right? So I want to keep being innovative, right? While supporting the needs of all of our residents.
I want our city to be vibrant. I want our city to be self-sustaining. I want it to be a destination for people to come to. I want them to have restaurants to come to and parks to come to. I love our splash pad, our library. We're right there by Randolph. We have a lot of transient military. I want them to come back. And a lot of Universal City are military that left and come back. I want it to be a place that's not outside of a military base. I grew up in the military, and you have these great bases, and then you go out and you say, not really safe, not really pretty, lots of bars, no place to go. I want Universal City to be a shining star because Randolph is a shining star, and I want people to be proud that they're living there.
The city of Universal City has to move outside of itself, meaning that we should now be thinking about being integrated into a metroplex. We are at build-out. So we should be considering right-sizing our government as far as personnel is concerned. We should be considering right-sizing our government as far as taxes. We should be considering right-sizing things to cover our infrastructure needs, particularly roads, sewers, and drainage in our city. So without a comprehensive plan that's a true comprehensive plan that defines what our infrastructure needs is, rather than essentially the failures of comprehensive plans in the past, I think, without it addressing those fundamental needs of the city will go nowhere. The city will remain in an infrastructure debt, even though they will have a AA rating and Standards and Poor's for the money that they have in the bank. It's important to understand that we have an infrastructure debt, and if we don't address it now, essentially we're just pushing it down the line, and things are going to get worse and worse and worse. So the deal for the future is to use that venue tax to start addressing our infrastructure needs, to incorporate something called smart highways in Pat Booker and our streets, essentially so that traffic can flow more easily along Pat Booker, essentially to expand, to use our alleyways as assets rather than liabilities. The city has forgotten the alleyways type thing. Let's make them part of the quote-unquote linear park system so you can have your bike trail that go through Universal City. Let's look at the park system again, where essentially now that there's so much of an issue with regard to security in school systems, many areas of the Universal City, particularly Coronado, kids don't have access to a park anymore. So let's address that also. So infrastructure is the path to the future while being financially prudent and watching that budget.
Question 9. Why should people vote for you? Your closing statement.
Because I'm a nice guy. No. I feel that I have that vision. I've been in Universal City for a long time. My passion is Universal City. I just got married. My wife has a home in Shirts. We're getting ready to sell that. We're going to move everything to Universal City. It would be cheaper for me to stay there, but Universal City is my passion. My wife knows that, and she's been in Universal City before, and she's going to be going back. I've raised my child here, and I'm not going anywhere. I believe that change is inevitable. And I want to make sure that I am with the Universal City citizens and making that change happen. I'm not done serving the citizens, and this is a passion of mine. My heart is with Universal City. I grew up in Lake Tahoe. You'd think my heart is there. I get back in every way, but the people I've met, the family I've gained is everything. And as far as I'm concerned, if anybody wants to mess with Universal City, they're going to have to go through me and our citizens, and that's just not going to happen. I feel I have the vision. Financially, I know what's going on. I've served 6 years. I'm just now getting acclimated to how things work. And the more I work, the more I understand. And I am the one candidate. I know we have Phil Vaughn, and he is an incumbent. He's been in here 1 year. I've been in here 6 years, and we're just starting to rock and roll and moving this forward. I want to make sure we do it right. And like I say, I was about ready to get out, but a lot of people that have voted for me in the past said, please don't. And I'm not going to.
Well, this is why I'm wearing the headband. We're going to get fiscal here. All right. That's why you would vote for me. I want to cut taxes or at least stop the growth. I think we need to have a tax rate that's competitive with our neighbors so we can attract businesses and not be a burden on our residents. We need to focus on our priorities. That's police, that's fire, and that's infrastructure, which is streets, parks, water, and sewer facilities. That's where we should be focusing on, not all this extraneous stuff. We need oversight of our city government, and we need checks and balances. We don't need a council that gives the city whatever they want without question and that's friends with the city manager. We need independent people that are going to listen to the people's concerns and take them seriously when we try to deliberate the issues of the city. And then my Hail Mary is to reduce our onerous business codes. I would really love to do that. I called for it last time, but my council member shot me down. If we have a new council, maybe we can accomplish some of that. So that's why I think you should vote for me.
The only reason people should vote for me is because they trust me and they believe that I'll do the right thing on the council, which is basically what I'm telling you is I will share everything that the law allows me to share. Remember those executive sessions. And I will be wanting your feedback because I can only take a consensus of what I know the voters want, and that's the way that I'll vote. I'm not going to vote what I would want. I may counsel to you and try to win you over to my way of thinking, but it's whatever the consensus is how I'll vote. I'm not doing this for me. I see a seat on the city council as being more of a solemn responsibility than a place of prestige and power. That's just who I am. I believe in personal responsibility. I believe in freedom. And I have a strong sense of right and wrong. And, well, I'm kind of old now, but it seems like it wasn't that long ago that those were normal considerations of people, but I don't think it's that way anymore.
Again, I am new to the city, and it has been an incredible experience. I love every part of our city, and I want to keep it moving forward. But I want to focus on bringing people into it. One of my main focuses on my campaign is about people, right? And that's why I'm running. Is I'm young, and I'm always say, get involved. But how can I say that and not do it, right? I've been on the Parks and Rec Committee, but I need to take it another step further. And I want more people to get involved. I want people to take a part of and take control of their local government, right? And be a part of the decision and control the narrative for Universal City, right? And I want to be a representation for everyone in UC. I want you to be able to come to me. Like I said earlier, I'm not a professor, so I'm not going to talk down at you. I'm not going to say a bunch of words or throw a bunch of numbers at your way that aren't going to make sense to you. I am a hard worker that have pulled myself up by the bootstraps. I literally started my professional career flipping burgers. And, now I am a senior operations manager for a very large health insurance company. It's very boring, but, I'm filling up my time in the back end, right, with things like this. So I am here to bring the people of Universal City together and help keep the city moving forward. And that's why you should vote for me, because I'm here and I'm going to pick up the phone. If you want to talk to me, I'm going to answer my email, right? And I'm going to make things make sense to you. No, we may not all agree on everything, and I think that's okay, right? But again, keeping the city moving forward and getting as many people involved as we can. I plan on hitting as many houses as I can. I got my blue signs out there, and they say it starts with people. Can't miss it, because that is the most important thing in our city is our people. And it's the best part of our city. So when you get to those booths in April and in May 4th, check the last box, because I'm down at the bottom. But you can't remember me, Nick. You can't forget me. I'm Nick Ferguson. So check that last box, and I'll be here to support you and all of Universal City.
My closing statement. I think I have a proven track record of going out and saying, I want something done. So I find the best way to do it. I research it. I get the best people to help me do it. And then I finish it. And then after I finished, I kind of oversee it. Dog Park's kind of a good example. I promised Ken Taylor, who was our city manager at the time, look, just because it's finished doesn't mean we're not done with it. I pay an employee once a week to go in there and clean up all the poo that no one else cleans up. I follow through, and I think I've proven it. I think I've also proven that I'm very dedicated to this community. I love Universal City. And I put my heart and soul into it. Some people say I'm just going to be a yes man. But what they don't know, because I'm a cheerleader, that's who I am. I'm a community cheerleader. But what they don't know is I'm not the one who's going to sit up on stage and say, I did this and I did that and blah, blah, blah. This is kind of awkward for me to go out and tell you all the things that I've done in my life, because that's just how I live my life. But if I have problems, or if I hear from problems, I either go to Kim Turner, I go to the directors, I sit down and say, hey, this is an issue. What can we do about it? It's handled in-house. I walk away. I'm happy. If there's a person that I need to contact and say, hey, what do you think of this? This is how it went. So I do oversee. I do ask questions. I do say I don't like things, but I'm just not going to do it in the public eye. I think you should vote for me. I think I'm good for Universal City, and I think I've proven it. And I have a lot to learn. I've not sat on the dais. It's a very different seat. I've been on the Board of Adjustments, Board of Appeals for 6 years now. And you get up there and you're sitting there and you're staring eye to eye into the people who either don't like you or have big issues. It's a little nerve-wracking. So it's not easy, but I've been trained. I think I can do it.
It's not necessary to vote for me. It's important to vote for the concepts, to move the venue tax. It doesn't matter who's in council. We have 2 council members who essentially tried to get this through before. You need 4 to move things through council. Okay, you need 4 people to move things through council. If you want any chance of reducing property taxes, if you want any chance of moving the venue tax to the general fund to address infrastructure priorities, you're going to have to elect a council members, at least 4, in order to get it through council. Okay, so basically, venue tax reallocation will require that to go to ballot. All right, you need 4 council members to vote for that. With that, you can guarantee that there will be some tax relief, property tax relief. And my goal is to bring it down to 0.495%, which is $495 per $100,000 of your property tax value.
Councilman Paul Najarian, Councilman Phil Vaughn, Richard Edwards, Nick Ferguson, Lori Putt, Bernard Rubel, thank you so much for coming in and good luck with your campaign.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you very much.